everybody, it's Laura, and welcome to the Class of 74, the Storm Edition. We're expecting a northeastern to blow through here, and so we're trying to get this episode safely up at Podbean so people have something to listen to when the electricity goes out. All right, where we left off. Cynthia's father has had a heart attack in Washington, D.C., and her parents are spending the night down there. And Clay has his hand. He had surgery, so that's good. And where we left off, Mimi basically told Cynthia she wishes she could live with the Schuyler's forever. It seems like that's what Mrs. Valadares wants, too. Okay, without further ado, let's go find out what's happening, and here we go. I'll see you on the other side. Season 2, Episode 2. Life is full of surprises. Cynthia, Mrs. Valadares said, gently shaking Cynthia's shoulder. Your mother is on the telephone and she has good news. Cynthia tore her sheets back and ran down the hall to her parents' bedroom. Ashette, suddenly exposed to the open air, scrambled to her feet, jumped off the bed, and followed Cynthia's trail, starting to bark. Mom, good news, darling heart. It wasn't a heart attack. With a few days of rest, your father's going to be fine. Oh, thank you, God, Cynthia thought, falling backwards across the bed. Now Ashette was barking her head off. Gwaw, gwaw, Mrs. Valadares uttered in a sharply guttural voice, and Ashette stopped barking. Cynthia rolled over to see what happened. Mrs. Valadares was bent over Ashette and was staring down into the dachshund's eyes, holding a finger over her mouth. Cynthia, her mom said, I'm here. Her eyes were still on the housekeeper and Ashette. Mrs. Valadares must be a dog hypnotizer. There were sounds from her mother's end of the phone, and then, Hi, kiddo. Dad, hi, she said, rolling onto her back and smiling at the ceiling. How are you? Better. I nearly had a heart attack when they told me they thought I had a heart attack. She wouldn't tell him that Mom had already told her that story. So what happened? What was wrong with you? It may not have been a heart attack, but I don't mind saying the pain was something else. Caught me completely off guard. Shot through my chest and knocked the breath right out of me. Her mother had already said that, too. First, I thought it was a muscle spasm, but it got worse. Felt like someone was twisting a knife in my chest. I thought, well, if I just sit down and rest a minute, it'd go away. Chet Weisner, he's like me over at Ingersoll Rand. He asked me if I was okay, and I said yes. But then when he asked me if I thought it was my heart, only then did I realize the pain was on my left side, where my heart is. Chet must have seen the look on my face because a couple of medics rushed in with a stretcher. Cynthia thought of Derek Taylor in Post 49. Explorer Post 49. That's great they were so quick, Dad. That's why they started Explorer Post 49 in Brighton, because the hospitals are so far away. Excellent point. Liz, remind me to make a donation to that Post 49 ambulance. Cynthia's right. They didn't exist, and we don't have quick medical attention. Her mother said something. For crying out loud, Liz, I was carried out on a stretcher in front of the minority leader of Congress. Her mother said something. Ford smiled at me, her father said. Gave me the thumbs up, and then he raised a fist. Her mother said something. Not black power, Liz. Stay strong, her mother was laughing. Dad, Cynthia demanded, what happened? Oh, he said, as if he had forgotten all about her. Conversations like this with her parents could drive her nuts. They were always talking to each other while someone was on the phone. What happened is called costochondritis. Nobody knows what causes it. Do you know what cartilage is? Isn't that what Skip tore in his knee? Cynthia asked. At Killington? When he was playing frisbee on skis? Yes, the dope, her father said. He could have broken his neck. Did she just hear his Zippo lighter? Yes, she had. He was lighting a cigarette. I didn't know you could smoke in the hospital, Dad. Your mother brought me an ashtray. She heard him flick his lighter closed and take a drag. Cartilage is the connective tissue that holds our moving parts together. It also functions as a shock absorber, so we don't bang around like robots when we walk. What did this have to do with anything? No one knows why it happens, but sometimes the cartilage that attaches the rib cage to the breastbone, that's also called the sternum, can suddenly become inflamed, and it sends a searing pain through the chest that mimics a heart attack. That's what happened to me. The cardiologist didn't see evidence of a heart attack on the EKGs yesterday, but we still had to wait for the enzyme test results to come in this morning before he could rule out a heart attack. Her mother was saying something again. Kiddo, look, I need to hang up. The cardiologist wants to bring in a bunch of medical students. Here's your mother. The phone changed hands. Hi, dear. Your father sounds much like himself again, don't you think? Yeah. When are you guys coming home? Not tonight, that much I know. Mrs. Valadares said she can stay, which is great. We're hoping your father will be released today so we can go to the hotel, and then we'll just have to play it by ear, because your father still has pain. We just wanted to make sure, sweetie, that you heard the good news before you went to school. There was the sound of men laughing in the background. Cynthia could distinguish her father's laugh because of the smoker's hack that always followed. Her mother said quietly, now that your father knows he's not dying, he's having simply a marvelous time. Cynthia laughed. Her mom didn't sound worried anymore, so she wasn't worried anymore either. Her mom asked her what was going on there. Cynthia told her about Clay's surgery and his hand, but she decided to wait to tell her about Mimi wanting to live with them forever. When she got off, Cynthia hopped into the shower to wash her hair and then tried to dry it at least halfway with her dryer hose. She put on the blue bell bottoms and flowered blouse again from last week and peeked in on Mimi. She was up and already dressed. She beamed when she saw Cynthia and waved her in. That's great news about your dad. Yeah, thanks. Did you tell him about me? Not yet. I thought we'd wait till they got home, which might be tomorrow. Mom said Mrs. Valadares is willing to stay over again tonight. Mimi was assessing herself in the bathroom in the mirror. She was wearing bright red bell-bottoms, a pink blouse, and a hand-crocheted navy blue vest with big square holes that set off the pink in the blouse. Her shoes were shockingly normal this morning, a pair of natural leather clogs like what Cynthia was wearing, so she was about 3 inches shorter today. Mimi's room was much neater this morning, Cynthia noticed. But whether this was Mimi's doing or Mrs. Valadares's, she didn't know. On their way downstairs, Cynthia tried to explain what had happened to her father that made everybody think he had a heart attack, but since she hadn't really understood what her father told her, and Mimi didn't really seem to care beyond the fact that he was going to be okay, they just dropped it. In the kitchen, the table was set for two, with table mats, napkins, spoons, 2 bowls of Cheerios with sliced bananas, and 2 small glasses of orange juice. Cynthia brought in the card she had made for her father so Mimi could sign the back of it. Then she took it into the den and left it in her father's chair so it wouldn't get messed up somehow. While they were eating, the telephone rang. Cynthia jumped up. "Good morning," Mrs. Fitzgerald said. "In light of the good news about your father, Cynthia, your mother and I have decided a little celebration is in order." "Celebration?" Cynthia asked. "Yes, a celebration. At 11:30 this morning, you and Mimi and Annabelle are going to the front office to sign out of school for the rest of the day." "We are?" "And outside, you'll find Greg waiting for you in the new car because you kids are going to Forest Hills to see the women's tennis final." Cynthia screamed and jumped up and down, prompting Ashette to start barking. And after she told Mimi the news, she screamed and started jumping up and down. And Annabelle, in the meantime, was screaming over at her house. After everybody stopped screaming, Mrs. Fitzgerald explained that the men's match started at 12:30, but their tickets were only good for the women's match, so they were going to have to wait until the men's match was over before they'd be let into the stadium. Now, these are very special passes that were given to Mr. Fitzgerald, Cynthia. So when you arrive, you will be able to go into the clubhouse dining room and get something to eat. "Wow," Cynthia said. "Greg's going to have enough money to cover you all for lunch, and you can also use the ladies' room in the clubhouse with those tickets." This was a far cry from when she and Annabelle went with the tennis team. They had to pile into a school bus whose gas fumes made them all feel carsick. Lunch was one crummy hot dog and a warm can of orange soda, and they had to use the stifling cement hut that housed a crush of toilet stalls that smelled awful. What had made it all worthwhile, though, was watching all the champions in the first round. That's where Cynthia and Annabelle had crowded against the fence to watch Chrissy Everett and her weird backhand wipe the grass court with Etta booting. They had wasted time at one stupid match, though, because Annabelle thought she was falling in love with the admittedly really cute freshman from UCLA who hit the ball so hard. What was his name? John? James? Jamie Connors? Something. Whatever his name was. They had lucked into seats in the stands, where a lady sitting in front of them was fit to be tied. The lady's name was Gloria. They knew that because at one point, the man sitting in front of her turned around to say, "Shh, Gloria, please." But Gloria went right ahead, twitching and jerking her arm like she was playing on the court too, and calling out weird stuff like, "Tiger juice, now," and "Slam it for two, Mom." By the third set, Annabelle had decided the UCLA guy was kind of obnoxious. She wasn't falling in love with him after all, so they moved on. "Now, Cynthia," Mrs. Fitzgerald said, "as your mother would say, the Westside Tennis Club is very tickety-boo, so it is important everyone dress appropriately. No pants, a dress or nice skirt, something simple, nothing short or loud or flashy. And you can't let Mimi wear anything kooky like those shoes yesterday. Wait, put her on and I'll tell her myself." Cynthia walked over to the kitchen table and held out the phone. "Mrs. Fitzgerald wants to talk to you." Mimi took the phone. "Thank you so much for including me, Mrs. Fitzgerald." She frowned a little. "Oh, okay. Then I'll thank Mrs. Schuyler." She listened. "Oh, okay. Then I'll thank Mr. Fitzgerald." She listened and started frowning again. "I'm not going to wear anything kooky." She listened. "I'm not. I'll tell you what I'm going to wear. I'm going to wear a Tyler and Beck's burnished ochre linen dress with clean lines, natural colored leather pumps with a 2-inch heel, and I will carry a leather handbag the exact same shade as my shoes." She glanced at Cynthia. And to complete my outfit, I will use a good dose of my Aunt Sarah's Lucas Valley Lockjaw. She listened and with a satisfied smirk said, "Good," and handed the phone back to Cynthia. She walked out of the kitchen, announcing that the ever-elegant Amelia Everett Watson needed to change her clothes. Whoa, they had a lot to do. Cynthia was just going to wear the dress from her cousin's wedding that everybody had liked so much last week, but the outfit Mimi wanted to wear was over at the Watson. So while Mimi called Clark to say they wouldn't be at his house until 7:20 or so, because Mrs. Valadares was giving them a ride, Cynthia quickly changed into her dress. She despaired over her too tight blue shoes, though, because they desperately needed to be polished. They had to be polished. But then Cynthia caught sight of herself in the mirror and cheered up. The sleeveless navy blue dress, trimmed in white, was still killer. She looked great. Cynthia carried her shoes, purse, books, tin of blue kiwi polish, and a rag down to Mrs. Valadares' Corvair in the driveway. They drove to the Watsons, pulled around to the back, and while Mimi and Mrs. Valadares hurried inside, Cynthia started working on her shoes. She was wondering what Mimi was going to do about the books she had left somewhere yesterday when someone rapped sharply on the window right next to her ear, startling her. It was only Clark in his suitcase briefcase. "Thanks. Now I've got navy blue polish on my knee." He shrugged and made his way around to the other side of the Corvair, opened the door and shoved his briefcase to the middle of the back seat. Climbed in. "Say," he said, "you look nice again." "Thanks, but now my knee matches my dress. Why did you have to sneak up on me? I didn't even know it was you. I didn't even know what was going on. My father pointed me in this direction, told me to march, and then he locked the door behind me. So I just walked over." Cynthia was really starting not to like Professor Allerton. She explained to Clark Mrs. Valadares was taking them to school because her mother and father were in Washington, D.C., and she and Mimi were going to go to Forest Hills in her parents' place. "What's in Washington?" Clark wanted to know. "Why aren't they going?" "Oh, well, they thought Dad had a heart attack yesterday," she said, trying to dry the polish on her shoes by blowing. "He didn't have a heart attack. Something really happened that was painful in his chest, though. Something that had to do with cartilage." "Costochondritis," Clark said. She looked at him in amazement. "That's it. How did you know?" "My mother has it." "Oh, sorry." "The pain can last for years," he told her. "I hope not," Cynthia said. "Dad said it felt like someone was turning a knife in his chest." "My father thought she was having a heart attack," Clark said, turning to look out his window. "And he rushed her to the doctors. After they were told she didn't have a heart attack." He let his voice trail off, eyes still out the window. Cynthia looked over. "After they found out she didn't have a heart attack, what?" "She never went back." Now he turned to meet Cynthia's eyes. "In fact, my mother hasn't left the house since." Cynthia swallowed. "I'm sorry, Clark." "Put it on," he said, nodding to the shoe. She looked at him. "Put your shoe on. Give me the rag and put your foot on the hump. I'll show you how to polish properly." She put her foot on the hump. He held the two ends of the rag and ferociously began polishing her shoe. When he leaned over to try and spit on it, she violently recoiled, and Clark's spit landed on the hump. "Clark, that's how they do it in the Marines," he protested. "It's a spit shine." "But I'm not a Marine, Clark, and it's gross." She held out her hand for the rag, and he slapped it into it. Great. Now she had a blue hand. She started on her shoes again. They were starting to look pretty good. "Hey, Cynthia, look at Mimi." Cynthia glanced over, stopped, and really looked, eyebrows high. For a second, she thought Mimi was Mrs. Watson. Her hair was pulled back and secured on her head with a tortoiseshell clip. The ochre dress was simple but chic. And with the matching pumps and purse, even with her messed up face, Mimi looked amazing. She looked like she was 30. Mrs. Valadares was coming down the stairs behind her with the strap of an Instamatic wrapped around her wrist. "Come, come, children," Mimi said in her Locust Valley lockjaw. "It's time for a picture." Clark and Cynthia climbed out of the car and walked over to the stairs. They looked at each other and then back up at Mimi, whose pink frosted mouth was in a wide smile. "Breathtaking, aren't I?" "Vanity," Mrs. Valadares said. "Cynthia, please come up here and stand with Miss Mimi." "I wish the fashion club was meeting today," Mimi said. "This outfit would set the bar." While Mrs. Valadares positioned her on the stair below Mimi, Cynthia took a closer look at Mimi. Now she could see the baby fat poking out, really. And there were a couple of pimples covered over with makeup. She had to be wearing falsies. Mrs. Valadares went below to snap a picture of them. Then Cynthia took a picture of Mimi and Mrs. Valadares. Then one of Mimi, Mrs. Valadares, and Clark. And then Mrs. Valadares took one of Mimi, Cynthia, and Clark, doing the see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. But Clark messed it up, so he and Cynthia were both doing speak no evil. They went off to school in the Corvair, and when they arrived at the end of C Wing, Mimi and Cynthia caused a bit of a stir, mainly because when Evan saw her, he bellowed across the parking lot, "Girl!" "He's back," Mimi said, delighted, hurrying towards Evan. Cynthia had forgotten Evan was coming back today. "Mimi?" Evan said, unsure of what or who was running at him. This demurely clad 15-going-on-30-year-old millionaires with a broken nose. Mimi ran into Evan's arms and got a hug. A lot of the soccer team guys were standing around. "Wow, you look great," Evan told Cynthia, holding his arms open to briefly hug her. "You just missed Annabelle. She said you guys are going to the Open." Everybody was talking at once. A bus pulled up to let more kids out, and a second later, Katie appeared. She smiled at Evan and reached to give his hand a squeeze. "It's good to have my very first friend back," she told him. "Thanks." Something caught Evan's eye, and he turned to peer around Cynthia. "You must be Lincoln Forbes." Lincoln was standing right behind Cynthia. He was wearing dark brown, sharply flared polyester bell-bottoms and a tight-fitting dark brown polyester knit shirt with yellow lightning bolts across it. With his neatly cut afro, his look was urban, sophisticated, Cynthia thought. Evan's look was more suburban white kid. Short-sleeved Lacoste shirt, tan cotton slacks and loafers. Maybe Lincoln could be in Mimi's fashion club. Oh, what was she thinking? Lincoln squinted at Evan. Is that supposed to be a lucky guess? Since Evan had known the new black kid's name was Lincoln, and he was the only black kid in the entire school, Lincoln had a point. "Hey, man," Evan said easily, stepping forward to touch Lincoln's arm with his left hand, while his right hand forced him to shake hands. "Thanks for helping us out. Coach said you were great yesterday at practice." "This is Evan Whitaker," Cynthia explained to Lincoln. "Oh, hi, Cynthia," Lincoln said. He turned back to Evan. "I heard about your accident. How's the head?" "So you're from Chicago?" Evan asked. So that was how Evan was going to play it, Cynthia thought. He just would refuse to talk about his head. Andrew, the soccer team captain, was making his way through the kids, holding an open Daily News in his hands. "Did you see this, Lincoln?" He held the newspaper out. Lincoln leaned forward and grinned, nodding. "I bet the AP photographer was glad he stayed to get that shot." Now, Evan was looking over his shoulder at the newspaper. Oh, right. Frank Robinson. Wasn't that great? With all his injuries, I never thought he could do it this year. Andrew let Cynthia look at the newspaper. He hit his 500th home run the other night. But it happened so late, none of the papers covered it yesterday. Homer elates Robinson, the article said. I have a cousin in Baltimore who was there, Lincoln said, a light appearing in his eyes. Ella and her friends went to Memorial straight after work for a twilight doubleheader. Almost 6 hours later, the stadium's empty. It's the 11th inning. Ella and her friends are half asleep, and wham! 500. So what? A nearby voice sneered. 11 other guys have done it. It was the taller of those creepy Droyer twins that said that. One of Vronsky's pals, the ones whose father stole Dean Junior High's goalpost after they beat Clinton. Even their names were weird, those twins. What were they? Heath Bar and Oatmeal? But no other guy, Lincoln called back, has ever been voted MVP in both major leagues. Just Frank Robinson. The Doyer brother muttered something and walked away. Students were going inside now. That's not your friend Mimi, is it? Lincoln asked Cynthia. She looks like a totally different person. The idea, I think, Cynthia said, following his eyes. Mimi was walking to Sea Wing with Katie. Gosh, but she looked like Mrs. Watson in that outfit. Had Mimi always known how to walk like that? Shoulders back, head held high, step not too long and not too short. Lincoln and Cynthia walked into the school together. They were just outside her homeroom when the bell rang. Lincoln waved by and slowly jogged off towards the intersection. Cynthia looked around. She had no idea where Evan went. Great, he was going to be late on his first day back. Mimi was in the classroom in her seat, staring off into space. And then, next to the window, there was Betsy. Yes, Mr. Bojansky said from behind Cynthia. Miss Satterfield has returned. Betsy looked over at them. Are you guys speaking now? Mr. Bojansky asked her. We're friends, Betsy told him, and looked away to fuss with a notebook. Mr. Bojansky looked at Cynthia and shrugged, indicating she was not to expect any explanation from him because he didn't know what was going on. He glanced down at his attendance book. You didn't happen to see Locker Boy on your way in, did you? Oh, he's here, Cynthia said, putting her books down. I saw him. Then she realized Mr. Bojansky had just called Evan Locker Boy. He was trying to be funny. She looked at him and laughed. You called him? Ding, 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 said the chimes over the loudspeaker. Mr. Bojansky gestured toward the door. See if you can find him, Cynthia, will you? I don't even know what the young man looks like. Cynthia dutifully headed to the door while Mr. Wolfgang B. Zollner said brightly, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, the year 1971. The hallway outside was empty. Not a soul. Mr. Zollner's voice was reverberating up and down the hall about a pep rally in the gym on Friday. Where the heck did Evan go? Cynthia walked down the hall, drawing the attention of a few kids as she passed by the window of their classroom doors. Somebody waved, and she backtracked to look. It was Jackie Defoe. She smiled and waved. Jackie would be wearing her cheerleading uniform to school for the very first time on Friday. That was so great. When she reached the end of Sea Wing, Cynthia walked up to the glass next to the double doors to look out to see if she could find Evan. She felt like someone punched her in the stomach. There was Evan, outside, just on the other side of the door, holding Katie Langston's face in his hands. while they kissed. Oh, man. I don't even want to say anything. What the heck? Poor Cynthia. Well, she did forget that Evan was coming back to school today, but this is a little much. And Katie, well, that Katie sure gets around, doesn't she? You're just going to have to come back next week to find out what the heck's going on. That was pretty funny, though, about Mr. Bojanski calling him Locker Boy, though. He's starting to get a personality, our Mr. Bojanski. Okay, everybody, that's going to be it for this week. I just want to remind you all that we have the Detention Club at Patreon. That's the Class of 74, patreon.com. And we had our first post-episode meeting, which was the most hilarious thing because I'm not a terribly good Zoomer, but we're working on the technical difficulties getting ironed out. If you want to join us at the Detention Club, please do. It's $5 a month. Your money's going to be going into the equipment and marketing for the Class of 74. And we'd love to talk to you. Now that we have Mark who can do Zoom for us, we really can talk to you. All right, everybody, I want you to have a super week. Be well, be careful, but have fun, you know? And remember, we don't drink and drive anymore. Ever. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.